We can start now, whenever
Yeah.
you want. All right.
I'm thinking maybe we actually just start off with us having a conversation,
Sure. Okay. Like
just
we're-
just sort of having a casual conversation, and that plays over the theme,
Yeah.
and then we just sort of naturally segue into the actual episode.
Like organically roll into it, like we were already talking, and then the listener rolls into the room, and we kind of look over, like, oh hey, it's you. Well, good to
Right.
see you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Exactly.
That's a rhetorical device people like. That's not off-putting or fake at all.
Yeah. Hey, baby, I hear the blues are calling.
Yep.
It's time for the Frazier on Frazier podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, I am your host, Adam Frazier, and with me is Wes Corwin. How you doing, Wes?
Doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing well.
Good.
So today we were talking about Frasier season 1, episode 23, Frasier Crane's Day Off.
Frazier Crane's Day Off.
It's like baby's day out.
Right, but instead of it out, he's off. He's off the leash.
I guess Ferris Bueller's Day Off would have been a better.
Either one. I mean, that would have been a very different episode if Frazier Crane had faked being sick so he could get into some Chicago shenanigans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is our second to last episode of the season. It's a pretty good episode.
I did like this episode. So many sitcoms.
It's notable for a couple reasons.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, no, go ahead. What were you going to say?
I was going to say most sitcom episodes, including Frasier, has like a moral or like a lesson. It was refreshing to see something where I think even if I focused and put all my effort into it, I don't think I could derive any meaning from this. It was mostly just goofs, and it was fun goofs. Frasier was largely made some assumptions, and then was wrong, and then started to hallucinate based on prescriptions he prescribed himself, which I think is a crime. And he didn't. I don't even know if he came out of it a better person, but he sure did get into some shenanigans.
I mean, I feel like any time Frasier humiliates himself, which we don't see the aftermath of that in this episode, but we know it's going to happen. Mm-hmm. And I feel like whenever Frasier humiliates himself, that's how sitcom characters learn, is through humiliation.
Sure, but then they keep making the same mistakes week in and week out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a vicious cycle. This is also... Yeah, this is. I was going to say this episode's notable for a couple reasons. This is the first time we actually meet in person Gil Chesterton, who's the food critic for KACL. He's been mentioned before on the show, but he's never. This is the first time we're actually meeting him, and he's played by. Oh, I just had. It's Hibbert, Tommy. No, Edward Hibbert.
Edward, I think it's Edward Hibbert. You're thinking of Tommy Hilfiger, who is one of the voices.
Who's also in the episode, right?
Yes, he's in this episode.
It's Edward Hibbert plays Gil Chesterton.
Yeah.
Who he hasn't really done a whole lot of stuff outside of Frasier, to be honest. He was in The Prestige.
Oh, was he a magician in The Prestige?
I have no idea what he was in The Prestige. I haven't seen that movie in forever.
I see.
But he was in it, apparently.
He was Zazu. He was the Dan Castellaneta of Zazu, because he was Zazu in Lion King 2, Simba's Pride. He was also Zazu in Lion King 1.5, which...
so they couldn't get Mr. Bean to do it, so they got Edward Hibbert.
They couldn't get Rowan Atkinson, star of Johnny English, to be Zazu, so they had to get Diet Rowan Atkinson.
Much like you were pointing out, they couldn't get Robin Williams back for Aladdin 2: Return of Jafar. Yes. So instead they got Dan Castellaneta, the voice of Homer Simpson, to do his best Robin Williams impression.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah. But then they got Robin Williams back for And we were talking about this previously, where they have a song in the Aladdin 2 for the
Yeah,
genie where he's like, "I'm back," and it's
but it's Dan Castellaneta. Nothing wrong with it, but yeah, no, it's weird to have a song where it's like, "Oh man, I never thought I'd be back here," and you couldn't get the actor back. Like it's a gutsy move, Disney.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's a fair point.
yeah,
Um, so I guess we'll talk about the episode.
yeah, yeah. Let's talk about Frasier. Let's get into some Frasier.
The episode starts off. Frazier, he's doing his radio show. He's apparently the caller he was on. It had like a car accident while he was talking to Frazier on his car phone, I guess.
We sort of enter in media res, where like seconds before the episode started, Frasier asked this guy to close his eyes and visualize a tropical island, not realizing drive time, rush hour radio, he would be in his car and driving, and would listen to Frasier telling him to close his eyes. Uh,
So he gets into a car accident.
yes.
And the guy's fine. We find out he's like, well, at least I know my airbags work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately, the driver that he hit, they did not. Their airbags did not deploy, and they died immediately.
Died at the scene.
And that's Steve Young as the caller.
Yes.
He's a football man.
He was
He's
the
a
quarterback
footballer.
of the 49ers. He was also on an episode of Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman, Beverly Hills 90210. He was kind of just doing stuff at the time. He was a very good quarterback.
But not the best driver.
No, he did kill someone, and that's gonna happen sometimes.
So we're introduced to Gil. Well, first it's
Gil.
kind of foreshadowed. Frazier isn't feeling well. He right before the show ends, he like has to like he sneezes or something. I think.
He sneezes. Gil also mentions a couple times on the air earlier today. He coughed, which he has a cough button for. We established, but he's coughing frequently enough. He couldn't hide a couple of them. Gil is listening in and sees an opportunity. So he goes down to Rosenthal's Deli and gets him some chicken soup. Chicken soup so lovingly prepared, even the chicken gets well, which I guess.
I don't think that's how chicken soup works.
I don't think so. I think he's dead. I think the chicken is dead, at least, and then made into a soup. But anyway, Gil proceeds to give Roz ladyfinger sandwiches that have been soaked in rum, much like her own fingers. Yes, because she's a drunk. Frasier jokes in a cruel way.
Mocking Roz's alcoholism is hilarious.
Yeah. So Gil is like, and the second he's gone, Frasier starts mocking this man with his phony British accent. Roz refers to the sandwiches as plump, gooey, and they're gonna rot your teeth. And Frasier thinks she's talking about Gil. He sees through this facade. Gil is making these moves so he can get on Frasier's time slot, which might be why we haven't met this guy, because he's got a single mind for getting his program out there. His late afternoon dinner recommendation radio show.
He's a little weaselly. Frasier doesn't trust him. He thinks he's just doing nice things for Frasier, so he can. I guess he's trying to. I guess Frasier thinks that Gil is trying to like convince him into giving up his slot.
Right. Like, oh man, now that you've given me this soup, I guess you can have my job, and you can just have my time slot. One thing that he does reference Bonnie Weems, who I don't know if we've brought up in the past, but he was.
She was. I think she was. Frasier had to drive her home in the Christmas episode because she's like the station drunk.
Aside that from one. Roz. Bonnie Weems. That one. I do recall her. She is very fun. Anyway, so now she is currently on the midnight to 4 a.m. slot because Gil Chesterton had asked to let him have her time slot. She went off on vacation for a week. When she came back, Gil had permanently taken station because I guess he was previously making dinner recommendations at the midnight to 4 a.m. time slot, and he's just been
Which is a very prime time to be making dinner reservations.
absolutely. So he's kind of just been bouncing up and around. He's switching from midnight to 4, and then 8 to
At that point, all
noon.
you can really recommend to people is Denny's.
Right. Have you tried the Waffle Home? Uh,
Have you tried the Grand Sandwich?
They have a perfect dish called the Moons Over Miami, but they put an H in the Miami, so it's Moons Over My Hammy. It's just to die for.
They're doing a whole Hobbit theme this week.
It's fun. It's good. Roz speculates he's just being paranoid. When Frazier's like, I'm not being paranoid, Roz points out that he brought Frazier some chicken soup. If he really wanted the time slot, he would be bribing the higher-ups, because they're the ones that make the decisions. And then Gil immediately pops in with comedic timing and is like, oh, thank goodness. I gave you the wrong bag. Here's your chicken soup. This is the lobster Newburg I bought for the station manager's cat. And then he leaves, obviously trying to game the system.
Yeah, so he's bribing. Well, which is weird that he would buy it for his cat and not the station manager himself, isn't it?
I mean, whatever you got to do. I guess the cat makes the decisions.
Yeah, the cat is the one making all of the calls in terms of like what the time slots are.
The cat will scratch on a big floor mat, like one of those playground floor mats that's made to look
That's
like
how they decide.
That's how they decide. He'll scratch around, and they'll be like, "Oh well, I guess they're getting the midnight to 4 a.m. time slot because cat scratched right there."
The C in KACL stands for cat.
It's true. It's very true.
So we cut to a bit later. It's Frasier's apartment. It's Daphne and Martin. They're having a little conversation. Daphne's talking about how they found like a partially decomposed body that washed up in the Puget Sound.
Yes.
And Martin's like, "Oh well, that's good news. The first, bodies don't rise until the weather gets warmer. So you get your first floater. Spring's just right around the corner." And that's.
I want that to be every bit of Martin dialogue for the rest of the show. I want him to.
That's a good Martin joke. I mean, it's taking something very grim.
Yeah.
And again, because Martin's a police officer, he's seen a lot of gore, a lot of dead bodies, dismemberment, so he's numb to the whole thing.
Right.
So when he sees a dead body floating in the Puget Sound, he's just like, "Oh, spring's it's springtime."
A disembodied head was found in our dumpster. That means 6 more weeks of winter. I want him to know exactly what time of year it is based on how close the nearest dead body is. Would be magical.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So Frazier comes in, and it's very apparent that Frazier is sick. He's pale, he's clammy, and Martin and Daphne are trying to kind of convince Frazier to stay home, but Frazier's like, "No, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna go do my radio show. I'm as fit as a fiddle." And he leaves, and then there's that comedy beat.
Yeah.
And then the doorbell rings, and and Daphne opens the door. He's like, "Oh, I'm sick. I can't go to work."
Sick. Oh, yep.
Yeah.
Fade over back to KACL, where Gil is on the radio, having stolen. He's got the time slot filling in. He's talking to Lewis, who's forgotten that tonight is 10th wedding anniversary. He's secured Gil has secured him a private booth at Maximilian's, and asks that he get a very German-sounding dessert. And
I looked it up. It's basically black forest cake.
Sure.
Is what it is.
Yeah.
Which I don't know why he wouldn't just say that, but I guess it's because he's kind of a pretentious food critic.
I couldn't possibly explain what black forest cake is. I'll have to use the German. And then it doesn't get across. And then Lewis apparently says, "You saved my marriage," which, Lewis, you gotta work on. If your marriage was at stake, I wouldn't be dialing in, excuse me, to AM radio. I feel like you should be talking to other people besides the people on your car stereo system.
Yeah, yeah. I wonder if this really does save Lewis's
Oh
marriage.
no, they're doomed. They're doomed. Like the second he goes to order the rainbow sherbet, his wife is going to be like, "I'm leaving you." A real man would have ordered the Schwarzwalder Kirsch torch.
So, and so this gives us a glimpse at what Gil's food show really is. It's not just necessarily him critiquing food. It's also him giving advice about food and helping people make dinner reservations and plan big, I guess, events where they're going to be serving food. So
Much
it's
much like how Frasier's whole deal is, hey, call into me with your problems about your old brain, your old noodle. Gil is a more specific, hey, when you don't know what you want to eat, why would you think for yourself? Call me. The '90s were a much simpler time where instead of Googling things, you would call in to 4 o'clock p.m. your nearest AM radio station. You would wait on the phone for about 40-45 minutes because of so many people that were dialing in, and you would wait for someone to tell you where you were eating, and you'd go like, well, I guess I'm eating there. Is
right. The internet wasn't as prevalent as it is now.
Yeah,
But of course, only a few years later, a certain search engine would come along and it would change everything. And
right.
that search engine's name, Ask Jeeves.
I thought, yep, there we go.
Um, so yeah, Gil has essentially kind of stolen Frasier's time slot. Because Frazier is out sick, they had to get Gil to come on, um, and Gil is killing it.
Gil is wrecking this shit. He is destroying it. He's playing to the crowd. He's playing to the room. He shoots a quick message out to Frasier, letting him know to get well soon. Just dunking on this idiot, this sick fool.
And Frazier can't do anything about it because he's sick at home. He's in bed. This is also the first. This marks the first time we've seen Frazier's bedroom,
Right.
which is very nice. He's got a big bed, lots of rooms,
Mm-hmm.
good bedroom setup.
Yep.
And so Frazier's in bed. He's got Daphne taking care of him. Martin is there telling disgusting stories about when he was sick.
Yeah, he's trying to. He wants to be with Frasier. It's like, no, bro, you need company when you're sick. You never know when you're gonna die. Martin says to Frasier, and then starts thinking about the sickest he's ever been, and he goes over when he got back from Korea. He got a parasite in his colon. Then another time, he got really sick in Mexico because he avoided the water, ate a piece of lettuce,
Ate a single piece of lettuce.
ate a single piece of he avoided water. He was deeply dehydrated, and then he came across a single bit of lettuce. It actually flew into his mouth. It was like unavoidable. And the next thing you know, he's vomiting for days, begging for death. Uh,
Yeah.
and then he recalls actually it was the time his wife left potato salad in the trunk of the car, and he ate all of it. So now he's more terminally ill at all
I,
times.
I think that's actually what killed Frazier's mom is that she ate some tainted potato
Ate
salad.
some tainted potato salad.
So Martin and Daphne, and also we get sort of it's a running bit for the episode. So Frasier is being kind of demanding of
Right.
Daphne.
Right.
He's sick. Daphne's supposed to be taking care of her, but Frasier's one of those patients who kind of asks a lot from their caretaker. So
Yeah.
he wants shaved ice in his drinks, not ice cubes. He
Mm-hmm.
wants bendy straws instead of ones that don't bend. He wants low sodium saltines. He's got a list of demands.
Yes.
And of course, and we see how this kind of wears on Daphne as the episode plays out.
Mm-hmm.
And then Niles comes in to visit his brother. We see Niles again. It's established pretty much at this point that Niles is a germaphobe.
Yes, absolutely.
And it's this scene that kind of got me thinking about. I don't know why I'd never thought of it before. I guess because I'm stupid. But like, I would not mind seeing like a Frasier takes on coronavirus episode.
Sure.
Like, how would the characters deal with coronavirus? I
Mm,
have to imagine, uh, you know, Niles would be terrified of leaving the house.
of course.
Uh, and I don't know, maybe Martin would be like an anti-masker.
Okay, I could see that. I could definitely see that.
Um, maybe Frasier too. I don't know.
I don't. Let's see. I think Martin. I mean, Martin's older. I think logically Martin would be the least likely to be an anti-masker, but he would also be dead because
He's
he's an
also
older.
the most conservative though of the.
Exactly. I'm saying that he would not believe in masks. He'd hate masks. He would since he's older. Number one, he's a QAnon.
He would.
And second of all, he'd be dead because he's older and they're more vulnerable. So
well,
he would. Yeah.
And that's perfect because because John Mahoney's already dead.
There you go. Exactly.
He's already got the part. He's already nailed the the part.
You know, some people are such method actors; they're willing to die before they get the part because they know they'll be playing a corpse.
Um, that's Jesus. So yeah, Niles comes to visit Frasier. Of course, the entire time he's got his hanky out. He's covering his face.
Right.
Frasier's like, get that hanky out off your face, Niles. This is why I think Frasier would be an anti-masker.
I feel like Niles would instead of any anti. I feel like he'd wear like a plague doctor setup during COVID all the time. He'd have like the full bird beak mask.
He would definitely have some sort of crazy Niles setup where he's got like a fishbowl helmet on.
Right.
And
Like
he's just got like the full like pandemic
like
hazmat suit.
spelunking gear to go to the grocery store, like kind of yeah, absolutely, I agree.
And Maris would probably just be like in a bunker somewhere.
Yeah, under just a bunch of coats, under just a full stack of coats.
So yeah, Frasier and Niles, they get to talking. Again, Frasier is terrified of Gil taking over his spot
Right.
on his time slot.
Yes.
So he wants. I guess Frasier tries to convince him that it would be a good idea for Niles to host his show. So that way, because I guess he figures if Niles is hosting the show, then Gil can't get his grubby little hands on it.
Essentially, I guess that's kind of the idea.
Well, and I guess so. No, what happens? I guess the order of things is that Roz calls Frasier at his house, and Roz. So the moment I love is that Niles picks up the phone. It's Roz. And Niles hands the phone to Frasier, and Niles is like, it's a Roz calling. Like he still doesn't know who Roz is at this point.
Not always familiar with who Roz is, and why
they've met so many times, and he still doesn't know who Roz is.
Not even a little bit.
Hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Roz is telling Frasier that he needs to get back on the show because Gil is really lobbying for his slot, and because he's doing so well on his segments, he very well might get it. Mm-hmm. So Frasier, he says, "Okay, Roz, you can count on me. I'll be in there tomorrow." Mm-hmm. And Niles is like, "You can't go in tomorrow. You're too sick." Yeah. And there's no way he could. He's like, "I don't trust Gil Chesterton. I think he's after my time slot." So basically, Frasier comes up with the idea of having Niles take over his slot. He does a bit of reverse psychology.
Yep. The old reverse psychology. He's like, you're right, you couldn't possibly... When Niles is like, I don't want to do your job, he's like, of course you couldn't. You've got to be entertaining, and you've got to be very quick on your mind. And Niles is like, I can't believe you're resorting to reverse psychology.
We're
And for,
professional psychiatrists, Frazier. Like we know. Like, how could you possibly expect this to work on me?
and then Frazier's like, then you're not going to do my show? And Niles is like, no, I'm going to do your show, and I'm going to do it better you ever dreamed of doing it. Oh, man, Niles said he did, but then he did fall for the reverse psychology.
Yep, that's the joke.
While this was happening, Eddie took away and then brought back a big old poultice of stuff, like a Guatemalan poultice.
I wasn't paying attention to that part. What was the joke? What was that joke about?
So the joke was Niles. We'll cover this very quickly. Niles's maid Marta, who's from Guatemala,
Right.
apparently her tribe, her village, has a custom where they wrap this bunch of herbs around their face. They all live to be 100. And Niles was kind enough to bring one over, and he's looking at it like, this smells gross. So Eddie comes up on the bed, and he's like, oh, and he ties it around Eddie's neck, and then Eddie runs away. And then the second the scene is over, Eddie brings it right back and leaves it on the bed, and Frazier's like, oh, man, I didn't want this. And that's it's kind of the whole thing there.
It's a good Eddie, but
Yeah.
So we cut to, I guess, the next day. Niles is at KACL. He's getting sort of the breakdown from Roz as to how the show works. She's pointing him towards the cough button. She's got like, oh, you got an extra long commercial break in case you need to use the bathroom. And Niles is like, oh, well, none of that's necessary. I have no cough reflex, and I have excellent bladder control.
Excellent bladder control, to which Roz replies, it's true, all the good ones are married.
Yeah.
You're on in 10 seconds, your first caller is Marcia. Niles starts going over some practice, what he's going to say to Marcia. Hello, Marcia, I'm listening.
He's trying out catchphrases.
He's trying out some bits. He's trying out some...
Frazier, of course, has, I'm listening, so
Right.
Frazier, or Niles, thinks he has to have a catchphrase as well.
Right.
And we kind of saw this in the last episode where he had the radio personality voice.
Exactly. He does. It's interesting we don't bring up the fact Niles has been on the show so recently. But he's just like, I'm Niles Crane filling in for my brother. And then
we have no idea when this takes place in relation to the previous episode.
True.
This could take place years after that.
It could. They could be immortal, and every episode could take place every 100 years. 100 years in the future. 100 years in the future. Niles does a good job of warning the viewers. They're not going to get a traditional show because Frasier is a Freudian, and Niles, of course, is a Jungian. So there will be no blaming mother today, which is my favorite joke in the episode. I thought that was great. I thought that was super fun. And then at first Roz is like got her head in her hand because it's like, oh, this is gonna be terrible. And then they put Marcia on the line because she's in love with her husband's brother. And Niles organically finds his catchphrase. He greets Marcia and is like, let's get better. And then he's like, oh, that sounded good. And he like indicates to Roz, like, was that? And then Roz is like, wow, that's pretty good. And that he immediately adopts that and he starts printing T-shirts. He is going to make a mint on...
He registers letsgetbetter.com from Ask Jeeves.
Yes.
Yeah. So Niles is doing Frasier's show, and Frasier is listening in at home. And
he's very pleased because Niles
he sounds like he's doing terribly at first.
It's very dry at the beginning. He decides to go with a lot of historical background on different historical psychiatrists, in this case Sigmar Bromna, that dealt with and spoke on the topics his subject, like the person that called in, he wants to give him all this detail. And Frasier is very delighted that he's awful. Meanwhile, Daphne takes his temperature. His temperature is climbing, but Frasier's very happy. Because he believes
his time slot's safe.
Niles is doing so badly, they're going to send a limo to pick up Frasier tomorrow, is how bad they're going to want him back, because the substitute he picked was terrible, because that's how jobs work. They're not going to reach out to him and be like, why the hell did you ask your brother who's terrible at the radio to guest for you? Instead, they're going to be like, oh, we've got to get we got to get Frasier back, like
Yeah,
that.
I don't get the line of logic at all. Like, why
Well,
would...
he does have a fever of 103. I don't know how well he's connecting dots himself.
Right. And we get a little bit more of the running gag where Frasier's being demanding of Daphne, getting on her nerves. He wants he wants those tissues with the little moisturizer droplet between the sheets,
Mm-hmm.
which
Mm-hmm.
I think is just a thing they do in commercials.
Right. I think
Um,
I yeah. I think you're right.
so that we've got that, and then we cut to
Also,
it.
before I'm sorry, but before we do that, Frasier wants Daphne to gather fresh rose petals because she's been dropping rose petals in the humidifier and they're starting to wilt. So subsequently, I don't even know if that does anything for the humidifier, but he's just asking Daphne to pick fresh rose petals to put in this humidifier, which I think is ridiculous. Uh, but okay,
I want you to
moving
go
on.
down to the park, and I want you to find I want you to find the freshest rose petals and bring them to me.
I want you to go down to the park and find the laughter of a child, and I want you to put it in a jar for me
I
and
need you
take
to
it.
find the first firefly of the summer solstice.
Not the second one, please. The first one. It's the only way I'm going to feel better, Daphne. Could you please get that for me? Yeah.
So we time lapse,
Time
and
lapse.
it's Niles do it in his booth at
Yeah.
KACL doing the show. He's taken off his jacket. He's pacing back and forth, and he's speaking very forcefully
He's
to...
animated. He's into it, and he's talking to this
Right.
couple. Yeah.
So he's basically talking about how, Howard, Lois, if I could stay on the air counseling you all day, but when it comes down to it, I need one of you to say I love you right now, or else, frankly, I don't see that there's any future for you together. And it's very riveting. It's very like even Roz is into it. Like, she's like,
Roz,
"Come on, Howard."
in a way that Roz has never. I don't think I've ever seen Roz enjoy Frasier on the air.
As
Within
much
one
as she's
episode,
enjoying, yeah.
she loves Niles is killing it, and you got to remember Roz kind of resents Niles for never remember. She is immediately invested and engaged. Niles
She's
is
on Team Niles now.
not only does Niles killing it in the program, he saved his own marriage, much like Gil Chesterton saved a marriage. This is back-to-back days where a marriage is saved by KACL's radio programming, and both days Frasier is sick. Frasier is tearing the marriages of people from Seattle apart, and finally, two of them are patched back together by Niles and Gil Chesterton.
So yeah, so it's very riveting radio,
Yes.
and of course Frasier is lamenting the fact that Niles has suddenly become really good. He's scintillating at the at this job that he just sort of fell into, and he
He's
just gave to Niles because he didn't want Gil Chesterton to take his time slot. But it turns out Niles is even better than Gil Chesterton.
even better than Gil. Who could have figured that he'd be better at somebody making other people dinner reservations? What
He's
a
even
what a better show! What a better show!
So and it's at this point it's pretty clear that Frasier is pretty loopy. He's very sick, um, and yeah, he's going. He's adamant that he's going to go back to work and that he's going to take back his show.
Yes,
And he tries to get out of bed, and Martin stops him. Uh,
yes.
he's like standing in Frasier's way. He's like, "Oh, what are you going to stop
Frasier.
me? You've got a limp and a cane. I'm a man in the prime of my life." And then Martin just sort of pokes Frasier,
Yeah.
just very lightly pokes Frasier, and
Yeah.
Frasier just falls back onto the bed.
You think I won't fight my father, my weak old father, to get what I want? And then Martin gives him the finger poke of doom, and Frasier
And now
drops to the.
Frasier is completely paralyzed.
And he does make a great sound. He goes like, yeah, and that's delightful, just wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, and so we get to, and I'm curious what you were thinking when, because this is the first time you've seen this episode.
Right.
But we get our next scene where it's Frasier's. He's suddenly back in the booth. He's doing the radio show. He's thanking his Roz and Gil and Niles, all of them for working. Wait, am I getting
I
ahead of myself?
yeah,
No, I'm not.
you're in the right spot. Yeah.
Right. So Frasier's thanking them for doing the show while he's been sick, and he's ready to get back to making people, helping people. And he takes the first call, he presses the button to bring the caller on, and then he just explodes.
I love the idea. So I will tell you, I thought something was weird. I didn't know. I didn't think, oh, there's a dream sequence, but I did think like that's super weird. Gil and Niles are just standing outside, shoulder to shoulder.
Like
Uh,
grinning, like very maniacally.
and I mean, Frasier's dream isn't too far off because, of course, if you're gunning for that sweet 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. a.m. radio slot, of course you'll kill someone with a bomb under their chair. I mean,
Right.
we're talking about hundreds of dollars a month in salary in this job. You got to go for it. You got to go for it.
We will kill you at your job,
Yeah.
in your booth,
Yep.
while you're on the air.
And it's one of those old problems where if one of them says they did it and the other says I did it, but you don't have evidence that either one of them did it, you've got it, and they won't turn on each other. They both get the job, and then before you know it, it's a mental health and a show where after Niles cures you of your mental ailments, Gil makes you a quick reservation, and it's just it's perfect. It's peanut butter and chocolate.
Um, but it is a dream sequence.
It is.
I mean, I knew. I mean, I think going back to the first time I saw this episode, I mean, I knew something. You know something's up because it's so quick. Like we see Frazier sick, and then we cut to the next scene, and he's better again. That's not right. So
No,
it's a dream sequence.
it is.
Frazier is still sick in bed. He's very upset. He wakes from this dream. He calls for Daphne, and he's convinced that everyone is plotting against him. He is, everyone is plotting against him to take his sweet, sweet time slot away from him.
Mm.
And Frazier is adamant now that he's going to go back to work, and he's going to, regardless of whether or not he's sick, he's going to go back to work. And he does. Daphne, of course, points him out that you're in no shape.
You're completely loopy. You have no mental capacity whatsoever. You're freaking out. And Frasier oh, that's what you're probably in league with Niles. I know about the two of you. You pretend not to know, but you know. And there's a fun little script note here that Jane Leaves, the actress who plays Daphne, and claims that she knows more about the character Daphne than the writers who created her, has always maintained the way she plays Daphne. Daphne is aware that Niles is very into her, but sublimates them out of feelings of she's like, no, he wouldn't be into me. He wouldn't like me. I'm no good. So he just.
I've heard that. I've heard Daphne's actress Jane Levy's talk about that, and to be honest, I've never gotten that from Daphne. I've always gotten the impression that she's just completely oblivious.
Which is funny because she has psychic powers.
Right.
You'd think she could get a read on it, but
yeah, I've always thought that was the joke, but apparently it's according to her, it's more complicated than that. So
it's a little bit more complicated.
You can believe whatever you want. But yeah, so Frazier decides he's going to prescribe himself, because he's a doctor. He's going to prescribe himself all of the drugs so he can go into work and do his job, which is also known as like the Donald Trump approach.
Yes, absolutely. I'm Googling right now. Just as a doctor, can you write prescriptions for yourself? And I feel like it should be. It's not illegal for doctors to self-prescribe. Researchers, as well as the American medical, generally consider it a bad idea.
Yeah.
Because Yeah, as doctors aren't the most objective
It's,
prescribers when
it's like
treating
one of those
themselves.
things where, like, if you're like on trial for like a crime or something, you don't represent yourself.
Right. The man who represents himself as a fool for a lawyer, and the man who gives himself medicine is a fool of a doctor. That's why I don't believe in medicine. You can't treat yourself.
So, I mean, so yeah, Frazier is treating himself with very very strong drugs. He's going to be very high.
Yes,
Uh, he's going to be feeling great because I'm sure he's
but
on some very good drugs.
right. But he is going to be a space cadet. He is going to be high in the sky.
So yeah, he's going to go to he's gonna go down to KACL and he's gonna take back his radio show.
Mm.
Um,
Before that, Daphne confronts him about. Before Daphne tries to make one more argument that Frasier is no, and Frasier says, I don't give a fig what you think. The moment I give a fig what you think is the day England produces a great chef, a world-class bottle of wine, and a car that has a decent electrical system. Three burns on England, where Daphne is from, where she shot her hit TV show as a child actress, Mind Your Knickers. So she's obviously loves her homeland, and she proceeds to say that she's dealt with people on their deathbed that are better to deal with than Fred. He's an absolute nightmare, and as far as she's concerned, he can lay down in his sweaty sheets until he's one big bed sore. She hopes he dies in bed. Is the gist of it. And then
right.
Fraser's like, "Are you done?" And then
He's
Daphne's
very
like, "Yeah,
he's very
yeah."
deadpan. He
He
doesn't
doesn't
care.
care. He doesn't give a shit. He's like,
He
do the thing I said, slave," and then that's the end of it.
so of course Frazier gets down to the the KACL, and Gil spots him in the hallway,
Right.
and Frazier's got the big goofy smile on, and uh, Gil's like, "Oh, I didn't think we were gonna see you. I thought you were sick." And Frazier's like, "Nope, I'm all better. Took some wonder drugs, and I'm feeling wonderful."
Right.
So,
He also calls him. Now, look, I don't know if the writers of Frasier were that goofy, but when he said, I thought we might get some glimpses of the kind of perspective Frasier has, and I was really hoping when he said "Tata Pie Man," we would cut back to Gil and he'd be dressed in a giant pie outfit. He would be like bottom to top. He would just be a big pie with
like,
shoes and
he would
gloves.
like have a pie for a head. He
No,
would
he
just
would have
be.
a pie for a body. He would be a
Oh,
whole pie man.
I mean, that would have been good. I would have liked to see that.
I think that would have been fun, but instead we have to. It's up to our imagination. We have to pretend what Frasier is seeing.
Right, because the show is on a shoestring budget.
Shoestring.
We can't we can't be showing you pie people. You
Yeah,
just got to imagine it.
you got to put it
Um,
in the head.
so yeah, Niles is in the middle of counseling someone on the radio.
He just changed a life. He's fixing marriages. He's fixing lives. The T-shirts are moving. The Let's Get Better thing is trending on AOL.com. He's crushing it. He's crushing this.
But Roz, or Frasier busts in, and he's like, "I'm taking over the show,"
Yes.
and it's he's of course Roz and Niles try and stop him,
Yes.
but
They're
he
like, "Hey, you're not feeling well," and Niles believe like it tries to play to his sense of He's like, "This is what you're gonna do. You're gonna go to bed. You're gonna get some rest. You're gonna get rid of this fever," and he tries to get Fraser's focus and appeal to him that way. And Fraser goes, "Okay," and then asks someone to help drive him home. And then he shoves Roz and Niles out of the door, locks them out of the studio, and starts hosting his radio show. Uh,
very sneaky. He,
very doing some sneaks, doing some of them old sneaks, them old stealths.
so yeah, so so Frasier's back. He's on his radio show. He's like, "Hello, Seattle. I promise never to leave you again." And of course, Frasier is still very very high.
Very much so.
We get a caller by the name of Robert who calls in. And Frazier immediately hangs up on him because we've already had a Robert on the show today.
And Robert is, of course, played by Tommy Hilfiger.
Right.
Uh,
He's a
that's
fashion man.
that's as many lines as you can get out of Tommy Hilfiger. He says, "Hi, thanks for taking my call. I'm a little nervous, okay? My name is Robert." And Fraser's like, "And your name is?" And he's like, "My name is Robert." "Oh, we've already had a Robert on. Goodbye." Hits the button. And thank you, Tommy. This was actually Tommy Hilfiger's favorite episode of Frasier. So when they had him, he did a whole bit where he was like, "Hi, my name is Tommy Hilfiger," and they're like, "So we've already had it, Tommy." And they hit a button, and he was forced to leave.
Yeah, I'm wanted on the Zoolander set. And we cut to outside the booth. Roz is on the phone. She's calling security to get Frazier out of the booth. And she says Captain Kirk's got control of the bridge and he's gone insane.
Yes.
Which I think it would have been a better. It would have made more sense for Roz to say Commodore Decker has control of the bridge and he has got insane.
Oh, how do you reason?
Because of the classic Star Trek episode, The Doomsday Machine,
I
where Commodore Decker, he's a captain or a commodore. He loses his entire ship to the Doomsday Machine. They're all dead, and he goes crazy, and he takes control of the Enterprise, and he nearly gets everybody killed. And I just thought that would have made more sense, but I mean, apparently the show isn't written for me or anybody else for that matter.
No, no, it clearly isn't. Who's that fuck? Who's the character that's super into Star Trek? Uh,
It's Neil.
Neil, old Neil. Noel is
Yeah,
Noel.
that's right. Blah.
Noel is his name. Yeah, no, I feel like it might have worked better if Noel said that, and then Roz kicked him in the shin for making a Star Trek. It's so weird because we've seen
We've seen
Roz
Roz make fun of
show
Noel.
contempt for having a fan for being aware of some Star Trek stuff, and she makes a joke, and it's like, oh, okay, well, I guess. But no, yeah, that whole Commodore Decker thing, that's definitely the direction they should have gone instead.
I can see the look you're giving me, Wes, and I don't appreciate it.
No, 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 it's great. It's wonderful. I'm very glad that you said
So
all that.
so we go back to Frasier, and it, we have a woman by the name of Marjorie calling in, and Marjorie's having problems with her boss. And Frasier recommends they do some role playing. He wants Mary or Marjorie to be more assertive towards her boss, so he's going to role play as Marjorie's boss, and Marjorie is going to say the things that she wants to say to her boss that she normally doesn't feel comfortable saying. So they do this role playing, and it seems like it's going well.
Right.
And then we get to the end, and Frasier wants to switch roles.
Yeah. I'm
Which
Marjorie, and
misses
you're
the
the boss now.
Yeah. Which misses the point completely.
Yeah.
And it's at this point I think they bust in. The ATF busts down like the door to
They
the
kick
booth.
down the doors. As first of all, we skip the fact Marjorie is played by Mary Tyler Moore, who is a famous comedian of she was
Is it
host
Mary
of the
Tyler Moore?
Mary Tyler Moore, host of the Dick Van Dyke Show, and later the Mary Tyler Moore Show when she killed Dick Van Dyke to take his show.
You're totally right. Yeah.
Yeah, I am right on both of those things I said. But yeah, no. As we're all aware, a local AM radio station in the city of Seattle has great security. So people that are employed to break up when someone wants to take over a radio show, as Frasier has done, break down his door and start escorting him off the premises, as he is wont to have happen. It's time he leaves. They grab him by the arms. And they put him in what looks like an office chair to wheel him down.
I think it's just the chair that he's sitting in.
Oh, okay. So Niles doesn't even keep the chair. Oh, that's disappointing. They just take the chair out of the room and start wheeling him down in the chair.
Yeah. And Niles tries to cover up the fact that his brother is a raving lunatic and just sort of hijack the show.
Yeah. As a sort of strategy, Niles is like, "Oh, it was a bit. We were doing a bit. We were doing it was a docudrama we put together on the dangers of over-medication. It's one of those goof-em-ups the Crane brothers get into." And then Frazier sprints down the hallway, and we see him in the window briefly. And Niles says, "Bravo, Frazier, for brilliantly demonstrating why they call it dope." And that got him.
So we cut back to Frazier in his apartment, in his bed. Frazier, he awakes suddenly, and he's very upset. And he's like, Daphne. He's like, I had another dream. I went down to the station, made a big fool of myself. It was terrible. They chased me out of there like a lunatic. And Daphne tries to be very comforting. She's like, "Oh no, it's just a dream. You'll feel better in the morning. Go back to sleep." And Frazier, of course, wants her to bring him lemonade.
Of course.
Meanwhile, Martin's just standing in the doorway watching this whole thing.
Yes.
So Daphne, she goes out, passes Martin, and Martin's like, "Well, why did you tell him it was a dream?" And Daphne's like, "Well, it's no fun telling him the truth now when he's all doped up. Well, I'll tell him tomorrow when he's really lucid."
Yep.
Yeah.
Got him. Got that idiot.
That's Daphne's revenge for how she's been treated in this episode.
That sick fool. Won't he feel ashamed when I tell him it wasn't a dream?
I mean, he seems pretty lucid now. I feel like you could get away with telling him now.
He's still sick, I guess. But and then after the credits we see Frazier's in the booth talking. He looks over at Roz, but it's not Roz, it's Eddie, and he's got headphones on. This is Roz's worst nightmare. Frazier's dog takes my job.
I just think it's adorable that they had to so they have the adjustable headphones, and they had to adjust them down to their smallest setting just so they could fit them on Eddie.
So they could put them on the dog.
I loved that about this. It's one of my favorite in credit bits. So yeah, that's pretty much the episode. Frazier Crane's day off. We got to meet Gil.
Gil Chesterton.
Yeah, that was our big event for the episode. But yeah, it was good. I forgot how funny this episode was.
It got a lot of goofs, got a lot of bits and laughs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk about our last. We are on our last episode.
This is the season finale. We made it all the way through the first season of Frasier.
It's the season finale of Frasier. The season finale of the Frasier on Frasier podcast. Yes. My Coffee with Niles. So basically, Frasier just spends the entire episode having a conversation with Niles and Cafe Nervosa.
Is this a clip show?
You know what? You'll have to tune in and find out.
Is this a clip show?
You'll have to tune in and find out.
Adam, is this a clip episode?
Good night, everybody. The Frasier on Frasier podcast wishes to thank KACL780.net for providing episode transcripts and Ronald O'Connell for providing our theme song, Frasier MIDI.